Alright, so I've had to be pretty hush-hush about this since last week, but as some of you might know, I was at PAX 2025 and had the opportunity to play Digimon Story Time Stranger early, and I'm not talking about the public demo that was available at the Bandai Namco booth. I'm talking about the fact that I was flown out to the event to basically go backstage and play the actual game build early alongside some other content creators and games journalists within the space. Today I'm going to talk about my experience while showcasing a bunch of never before seen gameplay. I'll also talk about some of the improvements I've seen with this title compared to Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory. I also wanted to quickly say before we get into the intro that I was able to record all of the footage of me playing, which is over 3 hours, and I did use this time to my advantage in order to learn about some of the game's mechanics like agent skills. I literally have all of them in my recording. The Digifarm, the type system, evolution mechanics, a DLC area, and a whole lot more. Leading up to release, I'm going to be putting out breakdowns for all of the major systems, exploring how they work in this game, how they differ from previous Digimon story titles, and I'll be using this exclusively recorded footage for all of them. That said, make sure to subscribe because I'm not going to be holding back anything until release. Then when release does hit, we're going to be doing a full Let's Play series, a review, guides based on having a lot more playtime, and a whole lot more. So make sure to sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Okay, so the play session was broken into two major parts, the first of which was roughly the first hour of the game, leading up to a certain point, and the second was somewhere in the middle of the game during a story mission that ultimately leads into a boss fight. The first portion of the game does a really good job of introducing you to the premise of the story, which we won't be focusing on in this video, and all of the basic mechanics that most of the people who have played the Cyber Sleuth games will remember, though there are some significant differences. I will say that the intro of the game does not lag on, and it does a really good job of letting you learn the mechanics without being overbearing. We are of course presented with one of three options with our starters, which is already public knowledge, and we're pretty much driven straight into combat, part of which is a major quality of life upgrade. You can now initiate battles by summoning your Digimon to attack prior to battle right in the overworld, so no random encounters, but also this takes away the RNG of back and first attacks that were present in Cyber Sleuth. If your Digimon is strong enough to do enough damage to knock out the enemy, it can be defeated right then and there, though encounters with multiple Digimon will simply kill the one you attacked and still force you to battle with the others. If you're not strong enough to defeat it in one shot, it'll just do a set amount of damage prior to the battle, and you'll sort of start with that enemy already hurt. Speaking of combat, I learned pretty quickly that there are some interesting differences of note. Firstly, some of you might already know this, but Digimon don't actually get their scan rate until you defeat it, which if you didn't know, that's how you create Digimon. Essentially, every time you encounter one, the scan rate goes up until it hits 100, at which point you can create that Digimon or let it rack up to 200 in order to get a more powerful version of that Digimon. Secondly, items and swapping to your reserve members don't actually cost a turn anymore, so you could use that to your advantage. Every Digimon also gets buffed when it's low on health, making it stronger and faster. The combo system from Cyber Sleuth has been replaced with the X-Art system, which essentially is like Final Fantasy limit bursts of sorts, where the agent, aka the player, can use a special skill, whether that be a high damaging burst attack or some type of stat-related buff or debuff effect. You get to sort of play around with these and choose which one you want based on what you've unlocked. There's also a lot of changes to some of the mechanics surrounding Digimon. For example, to Digivolve, you used to have a certain amount of requirements and level, but now instead of having to get your Digimon to a certain level, the agent rank has to be a certain number instead. Instead of Digimon having moves that they learn as they level up, there are now skill discs, which are referred to as a Digimon's attached skills. Think of these sort of like TMs, but they don't break, and a Digimon has to hold it while it's in use. The ABI stat has also been removed by the looks of it, which used to go up as you evolve and devolve. This was replaced with the personality system, which is far more intricate than both ABI and personalities from previous Digimon story games. Instead of being a fighter that simply boosts attack, for example, there are 4 different personality paths, each containing 4 different personalities. And these all affect stats, evolution paths, give you certain advantages in battle, and more. This is definitely going to need a lot more research on my part before I can make a video diving into all of the nitty gritty. Now, one thing I immediately noticed as well is the sheer amount of improvements and quality of life updates that have been added since the previous installment, and I can't downplay enough how much of a game changer these are. So first of all, we talked about the sort of new first strike mechanic, which allows you to attack Digimon in the overworld. You can also use your Digimon to clear rubble, which is kind of cool. And the fact that there are overworld Digimon Digimon in general is also nice, but they've also done a lot to improve the flow of the game, including moving most of the Digilab functions into the menu, so there's no need to travel every time you want to change up your team, digivolve something, convert something, load something, etc. They've also added this sort of pop-up menu that allows you to see what happens in each battle, who gets what amount of XP, who's leveling up, etc. What's really cool about this though is that they'll give you the option to press a single button to digivolve right after battle, so that just takes away even more menus you have to go through. They've also added a Digimon evolution history page, so now you don't have to guess which Digimon used to be which. You can also favorite Digimon so you don't accidentally delete them, and there's a whole bunch more. The first area of the game was quite enjoyable, moves at a solid pace, and even features stronger than usual enemies that are optional for those that really want to challenge themselves. Now, the second area of the game takes place sometime later and focuses on an aquatic area within the digital world itself. It ends up culminating with a boss battle against Sharkmon, which, as some of you may know, boss battles are a little bit special in Time Stranger compared to Cyber Sleuth, since they're a lot more dynamic, with certain Digimon bosses having parts that you need to destroy or stop them while they're loading up attacks and stuff like that. And this really allows players to sort of have that extra layer of difficulty. Speaking of which, one thing of note is that the game has 3 basic difficulties, which are essentially just easy, medium, hard, but there's also 2 mega difficulties, which presumably are unlocked after beating the game. The second area allowed me to experiment a lot more with various items that you can attach, which you'll recognize from Cyber Sleuth. You know, there's those that increase various stats, there's some combination ones, etc. We were actually given access to what seems like every single one, which you can see on screen. I was also given access to a ton of different attachment skills, so that definitely affected how difficult the area was, making it kind of easy because I had a pretty OP setup. This section also had access to the in-between theater, which acts as a sort of hub world, not too dissimilar from the Digilab, but with some other features since, like I said, menus. Now, we weren't allowed to talk to everyone, so this isn't going to be a full list of what's available here, but this is where you access the Digifarm, which has had a major update since Cyber Sleuth. Admittedly, with the limited time I had to record, I didn't get a whole lot of footage here, but was given the chance to screw around with it after recording, which did give me some valuable information. There are various items you can get in the game that allow you to train your Digimon in a certain way, which will tilt its personality towards one of the 4 major groups / 16 values that I mentioned earlier. You're able to have a Digimon start training, but this does take a certain amount of time, but you can pay yen, which is in-game currency, in order to skip the training time. You can also decorate the Digifarm however you like, but to my understanding, these are just decorations and don't actually do anything. Speaking of decoration, there's some sort of online store here as well, but I couldn't access it since we weren't connected to the net, but I'm assuming it just has the different bundles if you wanted to like upgrade from the regular version of the game to like the deluxe. They also have various cosmetics, again, some of which come with the upgraded versions of the game. Furthermore, you also get access to 3 really cool dungeon areas. I didn't have time to run through all of them, but there is one focused on XP, one focused on money, and one that's focused on item drops. The basic layout is that there are different levels, each increasing in difficulty and drops. For example, in the XP area, defeating enemies on the lower level will get you lower tier Brave points, which is basically like an XP candy, but defeating the more difficult enemies on higher levels will get you higher tier Brave points. I'm assuming it's the same for the item drop and money areas as well. These also have shopping cart icons next to them, so much like we saw with Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, these are predicated to the higher tier versions of the game. Now, all that being said, I do want to say that my general experience with Digimon Story Time Stranger is that of a game that clearly understands what was good about Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory, and improves upon it in almost every way. The amount of quality of life added to this game is absolutely insane, and in my opinion will be the definitive Digimon story title for people to use as an entry point to the Digimon franchise. It's a lot more beginner friendly than any other Digimon game, but also respects its players enough to have honestly extremely intricate systems that will leave any hardcore RPG enthusiast quite happy. I will say that I'm not a big fan of the paid DLC content, and I do wish that the in-between theater was something that you could just have access to from the menu instead of having to find those access points scattered throughout the map. But overall, I will say I am happy with what I've played, and I'm really looking forward to the full release. I enjoyed it so much that I even ended up playing the public demos as well, but I can't stress enough that the demos available at PAX were significantly shorter and were of different areas of the game. They were like 15 to 20 minutes each and were much more limiting. Overall, my experience at PAX West honestly felt like a once-in-a-lifetime thing. I never thought I'd literally get flown out somewhere for 2 days to essentially playtest a game with zero expectation or contract stating that I must provide positive feedback or any feedback at all. All of the Bandai Namco employees that I interacted with during the playtest were huge fans of the game themselves and were more than eager to show off even more of the game's inner workings and mechanics after we were all done recording. I also had the honor of meeting Digimon Story Time Stranger's lead producer, Mr. Hara, and got to ask him some questions about the game, though we didn't record the interview. I tried to ask some spicy questions like upcoming DLC or future Digimon World/story titles, but as expected, he wasn't able to comment on a future project or future editions because they're just trying to focus on the launch. But I did get more insight into the design philosophy regarding which Digimon were picked for the game, with him essentially stating that they were trying to balance fan favorites with Digimon that made sense in the Iliad setting. He also talked a little bit about game balance, referencing that in previous Digimon story titles, there were certain Digimon that were clearly overpowered, and he was trying to sort of bring everyone to a reasonable level. Oh, and did I mention that I was extremely elated to see that internally and during the short presentation, both the employees at Bandai Namco and the lead producer himself refer to this as a monster taming RPG, not a creature collecting RPG, not a monster collection game. Nope. A monster taming game, which longtime fans of the channel will get this reference, but if you don't even worry about it. Anyways, like I said at the beginning of this video, I went to great lengths to gain as much information about the game prior to release as possible, and as of such, I'm very comfortable making some general breakdowns of the various systems leading up to launch, and I'm going to be including more never before seen gameplay in those videos. This will act as a pretty good way for people who haven't played a Digimon story game before to gain a little bit of insight, or for those that have played one of the Cyber Sleuth games to sort of see where things are different. That said, whether you're a new fan, a returning fan, or one of those people that believes anyone who can't differentiate the spelling between these two Digimon's names deserves death, I will be providing some content for you to sink your teeth into. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and again, I just wanted to say thank you so much to the Digimon franchise and Bandai Namco for having me, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.